Hello, hello everyone. Hope you can hear me okay. Hope you can see me and my slides. Hi. Yes, we see you all fine. Thank you very much, Clara. Wonderful. Yes, perfect. Well, I'm very excited. I hope you are as excited as I am, or even more. I understand that you've been having a great conference so far. You had excellent speakers, and now it's my job, since I'm closing today, the first day of your conference, to make you more excited about tomorrow, eager to come back tomorrow for more wonderful sessions. Hello, Adriana. Hello. Hello. So many people I remember, a lot of familiar names. That's wonderful. Thank you very much for being here. And I was asking before we started where you were connecting from, and I see that many people are from Romania, right? I think most people are from Romania. Some people are just saying, nice to see you again. Wonderful. So, if you were in my session last year, I just wanted to show you something because I understand now that we are going through a very complicated period with remote teaching. Some countries are still trying to get back to physical lessons in the physical classes. And I wanted to show you a token of last year's wonderful conference there in your country and at that beautiful hotel. And I keep it with me because I want it to be a reminder of such a great time that I had with everyone there. And I'm very honored to be here again. And today I'm going to talk about something I think that will be very useful to anyone teaching and also anyone learning anything. It's not particularly tailored to English language teaching. So, this is something that can be applicable in different subject areas, different grades, because I think that's what we have to start considering when we are teaching and learning. We have to start looking at how the brain learns and how the mind learns so that we can adapt the things that we do. So, thank you very much again. I'm going to talk about online tools and the science of learning. And I always do that, I know, but I would love if you could start following my blog, following me also on social media, especially Instagram. So, you can go to edcrocks.com. I hope you read my blog post about this session today. I know many of you did because I got a lot of hits from Romania. I think for the very first time in the history of my blog, I had hundreds and hundreds of views from Romania. So thank you very much for doing that. And you can follow me also on Facebook and LinkedIn. So you just type my name there and you'll be able to find me. Now, let's carry on. Let's get started. So today's session will cover the following topics: innovation, which online tools, the four pillars, soul, I'm sure you know what it is by now, metacognitive strategies, because they are linked with the science that I'm going to talk to you about. So, yesterday, actually 2 days ago, if I'm not mistaken, I asked you on Facebook what comes to mind when you think of innovation. And this is what I got from your side, okay? So, this is the biggest word cloud I've ever gotten in my life teaching. So, actually, this is what I had yesterday. So, I checked today, there were 230 or almost 240 people who pitched in and added one word that connects with innovation. So, what is the word that you can clearly see right there at the center of the word cloud? So, can you type it? Exactly. So, everybody can see it, right? Creativity, progress is there too, new, future. There's some other words: technology, courage, novelty, but clearly creativity is directly linked, right, with innovation. And what I want to challenge is, are we being creative? Are we actually allowing our students to be creative in our lessons? So many years ago, when I was still teaching English in the classroom, I came across one of the biggest, the most referenced TED Talks of all time. And I really wanted to bring this one here today to pay my respects to this wonderful educator that left this world too soon. And his name, Sir Ken Robinson. And we miss him, and he has left a wonderful legacy that we have to try to honor. Now, do schools skill? Guess what? Creativity. So Ken Robinson talked about the place of creativity in the learning and teaching process. In fact, he defined creativity as the process of having original ideas that have value. And I like his definition very much because it has something to do with innovation. I think creativity and innovation walk hand in hand. But again, we have to ask ourselves, are we allowing our students to be creative? Are we allowing our students to be innovative in the classroom? Allow me to explain where this is coming from. Have we changed education in the last decades? Look at the picture that I'm showing you there. So this is a slide that I put together to exemplify what has been going on. So I don't know, do you know who those guys are? Can you see the picture there on the left? I'm pretty sure you know at least one of those men, the one on the left. Yeah? Not Putin. It was long before he was. There he is. Yes, Adriana, thank you very much. Carl Jung on the right, Freud on the left, right in the middle, G. Stanley Hall. So this is a conference that took place a century ago at Clark University in the United States. And of course, I think everybody's familiar with Freud's work, psychoanalysis. He is the father of modern psychiatry and psychology and everything. And he was invited to talk about his work. And then I started looking for pictures of this particular event. And I found a movie that represented Freud lecturing. So you can see on the top right, Freud is right there, down there, behind the desk. There are many men, no women allowed at that time, right? Many men in front of him, and behind him, there's a blackboard, right? And he's teaching, he's talking at those men. And then I started thinking, it's basically the same thing that happens today, right? In many universities. And then I took a picture of my professor at the University of Bristol. And then there she is. So that's the bottom left, the bottom right picture. Jo, great professor. I love her. But she's doing basically the same thing. She's behind a desk talking at us. And the only difference is that now, instead of a blackboard, she has an interactive board with a projection of something. So she typed in whatever before, and she projected that so that we could see. So that's faster, right? So that's the biggest innovation in over a century. And then it got me wondering, how do we create the new? And of course, yes, somebody mentioned a lot of women in the room. Yes, that's the biggest innovation. More women in this case than men, I suppose, because we were studying psychology. So there were more women. And then I started wondering, I think that a truly innovative teacher creates innovative students. So it's not really just about replicating old things because, we were taught that way, but it's about questioning and rethinking the things that we do, and most certainly about empowering our students so that they can create new things and change things. Because Jo, my professor, she was somebody's student, right? And then that professor who taught Jo, he was also somebody's student. And for some reason, for decades, even a century, they haven't really changed much, because the professor didn't make the next generation as innovative as they could be, or maybe because the structure doesn't allow us to be innovative. But we have to start thinking about those things, right? And then I asked myself, and I want you to answer, how tech savvy are you? Because we are in this digital era that we are supposed to learn how to use different digital technologies, right? And then I started wondering, if I was a 10, so from 0 to 10, how tech savvy are you? If you are a zero, you live in a cave, you have no electricity, you don't have any digital devices. But if you are a 10, I'd say you can hack the CIA, the NASA, something like that, something that we can only see in those American movies, right? So, how tech savvy are you? Have you ever asked yourself that question? So, some people, 8, 7, 6, 4. We have some more honest people in the room here. Wonderful. Do you have to be a 10? Do you have to be an 8? Do you even have to be a 6 to be able to innovate? That's a very important question as well, because it relates to technology. And then what comes to mind when you think about technology? And for me, technology is not just something digital, but it's something that allows you to do something different. It's a tool. And if you go back in time and you think about ancient civilizations and when they created written language, for example, think about the clay tablets that they used to write stuff on so that they could make a record, they could register whatever was happening. For example, how they could plant this particular type of seed, or calculus or something like that, so that the next generation could learn from that. Amazing piece of technology, right? So technology is a tool to help us do something faster, better, or in a different way, right? And this is something that happened to me 2 years ago. I was invited to be on a panel for an EdTech conference. So we were talking about technology for education. And then the funny thing is that it became a paradox in my mind, right? Because we were talking about lifelong learning. I had been exposed to wonderful technologies and gadgets and everything, like virtual reality, somebody mentioned there, gamified platforms and things like that. And I think they're wonderful, really. I was amazed. But then we were talking about lifelong learning, and I'm not, exactly a reference in ed tech, right? And then I was wondering, why did they invite me? And the funny thing is, the paradox is, and I'm not going to tell you now, something weird happened. So when they reported what was going on in the conference, they used one of my quotes instead of, one of the quotes that some of those guys said. And those guys were into technology. Their references in ed tech, right? Because I said something that, I don't know, maybe resonated. It was something that people could relate to. And then I started thinking, what is technology for? And then technology is for inovação. And that's how you say innovation in Portuguese, right? And I decided to keep it in Portuguese because maybe you can learn a few words and you can realize that they're cognates, right? It's also about criatividade, creativity. And it's also about technology itself, right? So technology is all those things. And then as any language teacher, we like to look at the roots of words, right? The stem. So we want to look at what is part of that word. So what is part of innovation? In Romance languages, it's often nova, novo, which means new. So innovation is about new, right? What is part of creativity? It's about cria, criatividade cria. So it's create, right? And what is part of technology? Techno. That means technique, a way. So if you think about technology, technology is a new way to create or create something new, to do something, right? So it's to create something that didn't exist before or to rethink something so that we can use it to, for a new purpose, right? That's technology. And then when we talk particularly about digital technologies, for me, they are all about access because through digital technologies, we have access to first content, right? So, and I apologize, if you are professors at the university and I have a picture of Wikipedia here. I'm pretty sure you tell your students not to use Wikipedia, right? But I think Wikipedia represents very well this era of content, a lot of access to content that we have. So if I have a mobile phone, a digital device, a computer, I can access Wikipedia and learn about anything in the world, right? Definitely. but it's also about access to people and places, just like we are doing now. So I am thousands of miles from you right now. We are connecting. You can see me, you can hear me, hopefully well, because sometimes the internet connection is not the best. But I can also use Google Maps to go to your city and walk on the streets of your city with Google Maps. And I can take a digital tour inside a famous museum like the Vatican Museum, for example, nowadays, because of this access. And finally, development. So it gives us access to professional development. So we can study more about methodology, about teaching, about listening, about anything we want, really. Now, let's do an activity. Do you remember the three things I just mentioned here? Let's do a retrieval practice activity. So basically, well, you have number three right there in front of you. So number one and number two, can you remember? So you can use the chat box just to retrieve. Okay? Yes. Wonderful. Great, great, great. And then why did I select those particular words? Because internet, digital devices, digital technologies, they give you access to CPD. CPD is continuing professional development or continuous professional development. And content, people and places, and development. That's also CPD. So remember that. That's the purpose of technology, to give us access to the world, to different places, different environments, different people with different expertise and things like that. And then we have to think of the four essential pillars of technology for education, because we need to have the basic principles, the underlying principles of how we can access our students so that they can learn. And the first pillar is we need to have a virtual learning environment. That is basically the virtual classroom. It's where you put the stuff, where the students go. Somebody said CPD is not for free. Sometimes it is, just reading a blog post, and there are some online courses that are for free. But yes, but a lot of CPD is not for free. That's true. Anyway, we need to have a learning environment that our students can access to get the materials, to know the sequence that we're working with and everything. We also need a video conferencing tool, just like the one we are using now. So we have this one, we have others, right? We also need a video and audio editor because, okay, I think there was a glitch, but I hope I'm back. I hope you can hear me. So I was talking about the four pillars, right? So video and audio editor, because we can work asynchronously. So we can film ourselves, record videos or audio files, and send so that the students can do the work before. And then we can just, activate things in the lesson, during the lesson. And then finally, we need to have collaborative work tools. They are normally part of the VLE, the virtual learning environment. But sometimes they are not as good as, so we can find different ones. So right now, I'm going to ask you to memorize those four pillars. So if you want to take a picture with your phone, or if you want to write down very quickly, like 10 seconds, do it, because I'm going to test whether you can classify the tools according to the four pillars, okay? Are you good to go? Will you remember? Yes, wrote them down already. Wonderful. So let's do it. I'm going to give you some time, and you can do it on your own. If you want to use the chat box as well, feel free. So I'm going to give you 1 minute to do that. Okay, I think some people are experiencing some connectivity issues. I hope it's not on my end here. Yeah? Okay. You can hear me, you can see me. Okay, okay. Wonderful. All right, so I think you had enough time to think a little bit. We don't have to spend a lot of time there, but I will ask you and then you tell me the pillar. So number one, so we have a lot of Google, docs, sheets, slides, and forms. Number one, which pillar? Is it pillar one, two, three, or four? Pillar four, collaborative work tools. Excellent. Admodo, have you ever heard of Admodo? Which pillar? Admodo? Four, one. I'd say Admodo is one. Admodo is a learning management system very similar to Google Classroom in that regard. And I think it feels like Facebook. So it's the place where students go to find the activities, the sequence, and everything. What about number three, KineMaster? KineMaster, ever heard of this one? You can download on your phone. Yeah. So KineMaster is definitely three. It's about editing videos. And then WavePad also three. It's for audio editing, right? And Zoom, we are using Zoom right now. So what is that for? Which one is that? Which pillar? Yes, number two. Number two, it's a video conferencing tool. You can also record videos with Zoom. You cannot really edit unless you do it as you go, like stop recording or pause recording or something like that. But you can do many things with Zoom, right? I think Zoom is a great tool. Now, moving on and going back to my paradox. What was the paradox I referred to? So I was there in an EdTech conference talking about lifelong learning with EdTech experts and references. And then they got my sentence to report, to publish on their website. And my sentence was, é preciso aprender a aprender in Portuguese. So maybe you can understand that because you are Romanian. É preciso aprender a aprender. So it is needed, we need to learn how to learn. Exactly, we need to learn how to learn. And then they say, afirma especialista da National Geographic. So I was working as a National Geographic learning consultant, and maybe they got my quote because it was very fitting for the event, or maybe just because of National Geographic Learning, which is a big name, so I don't know for sure. But anyway, they were talking about different technologies, and then they selected this one on a panel that we were talking about lifelong learning and innovation. Why? Because I think that's very innovative. What is innovative? To learn about learning, to learn about the science of learning and how we learn, how the brain learns, how the mind learns. So, what is the science of learning? The science of learning is an umbrella term that refers to cognitive sciences such as neuroscience and psychology, and also social psychology, not necessarily cognitive psychology, right? But we can find other terms that relate to the science of learning, such as mind-brain education. And this is the logo of our special interest group here in Brazil. I'm a representative of mind-brain education. And if you attended my session last year back in Bucharest, that's what I talked about, right? The science of mind-brain education. But you can also find educational neuroscience, neuroeducation. You can also find psychology of education, and finally, educational psychology. So I studied psychology of education because it's part of the learning sciences. So we look at behavior, we look at cognition, emotion. Do you think, and this is a very straightforward question, yes or no, should teachers know more about this stuff? Yes or no? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. I would love to see a no and then ask the person why not, but then we don't have time for that. But so should we know more about this? Yes, definitely. And how can we know more about this? But before we move on, I think it's time for us to take a brain break. I normally do brain breaks. And then I wanted to show you my friend who visited your country last year. Remember him? Mr. Trunk. Yes, I hope you can still see my image. Yes. So some people remember Mr. Trunk. Wonderful. And now I'm going to ask you to do something cool. If you are watching this webinar on your laptop, your computer, and you have a mobile device that you can use, I'd love you if you could take a picture of yourself, a selfie or the screen or whatever, and post on social media so that I can follow you, so I can see your posts, and then I can interact with you. It doesn't need to be a picture of now. Maybe you took a picture before, or maybe you will still take pictures. So I just want you to take a picture, post on social media, and for me to find you, I'd like you to use a hashtag, and I hope you can see my hashtag, and EDC rocks. Okay, can you see it? No, actually, it's a wrong side. Sorry. So EDC rocks. So hashtag EDC rocks, and maybe you already have a hashtag for the conference, like Fisher International 2020 or something like that, right? So post a picture, and if you want to use hashtag Mr. Trunk Travels, that works fine too. Okay. Yes. Yes, could we not do it? Yes, it's up to you, really. No worries. Okay, now moving on. So, what are the metacognitive strategies that I can teach you that you can start applying today if you want to? I think it's kind of late for you to do it today, but maybe tomorrow if you're teaching. And I hope you read about them on my blog because I think I give more detailed information about how you can apply them. And I also have links to other blog posts that I wrote specifically about some of those strategies. But I'm going to cover them very quickly because really, you just have to understand the basic principle. And the basic principle of spaced repetition is the following: spaced practice reinforces long term memorization. Because we understand now, and I have something very cool that I bought a couple of months ago, my brain. I never go anywhere without my brain. So you have, actually, this is only half of my brain, right? And we understand that for us to consolidate memory, there is a structure right here, a medial temporal lobe called the hippocampus. And the hippocampus serves as a temporary storage for declarative memory information. So when we are exposed to new vocabulary, for example, we need to consolidate that and send it to the cortex, which is this pink area, right? So, and how do we do that? We do that when we are sleeping normally. So, memory consolidation occurs during our sleep. So, if you practice everything now, like cramming, we call it cramming, like rote learning, cramming, just revising on the same day, it's going to take forever. You're going to take many, many repetitions to remember this information for a long time. But if you practice over the course of a month or 2 months and you start spacing, the last time you saw it, the next time you see it again, and then the next time again, and you put some space in between, that's good for your brain. That's good for your memory consolidation. And the best tool that we can use for that is as simple as Google Classroom, because we can click on classwork, we can click on create, we can click on assignment, and then we assign something. So we type there, present perfect, whatever, we give a short explanation, and then we use the due date box. That's important. We can schedule when our students have to do it, and we can do it based on the spaced repetition principle. It's not that hard. You can set up the due date for tomorrow, 3 days after, 1 week after, a month after, working with the same structure or the same concept, so that they can really, really consolidate. I actually created a Google Classroom for some teachers in Brazil. You are welcome to join. I don't really talk about learning to learn, but I give tips on how to make synchronous and asynchronous lessons and things like that. So if you want to take a picture and join, please do. Now, the next one is interleaving. And interleaving has a lot to do with alternating between subjects or tasks. because that can improve learning. So I think we are under the impression that if we cover everything we have to about this one particular topic, then we can move on to the next one. Okay, no pick. I think now you can see the pick, right? So if we cover everything you have to cover about this particular topic, so you can move to the next one, uh, that works better. That's what the impression that we're under, I think. But that's not really true. Our brain likes novelty, and our brain gets tired easily, and I think our attention span declines very quickly as well. So one way you can do this, I mean, one way you can avoid this is if you switch between tasks. And I'm going to give you a very practical example of how you can do it. You can use a tomato timer. So if you are old school like me, you can use this one that my wife bought me. So this is an actual tomato timer. It's pretty cool. And then you can set it up for 25 minutes and there you go. Or if you are high tech, you can definitely find an app for you to work based on the Pomodoro technique, because you can work for 25 minutes focused. You take a 5-minute break, so a brain break, and then you work for 25 minutes again, and then you take a break. The first Pomodoro, the first 25 minutes, you work with grammar structure, the grammar structure that you are studying, and then break. The next 25 minutes, you can work with the vocabulary because you're switching tasks, right? Instead of working 50 minutes with grammar structure to understand grammar, it's better if you do grammar and vocabulary and then go back to grammar because the brain likes that. And then if you access Pomodoro Tomato Timer, you will see the instructions and how you can use this technique. It's quite simple, actually. And that brings us to the next one. So can you see the image now? I think there's a delay. What do you suggest doing during the break? That's a great question. Anything but thinking about what you were studying. Listen to music, walk, water the plants, stretch, talk to someone else, anything really. Yes, so the video is lagging a little bit. I hope now you can see it. All right. It might be something with my connection, or I'm not sure, but hopefully you can hear me, see me, and see my slide. So the next one is retrieval practice. So retrieval practice is something very simple. We do it normally, but I'm not sure we do it systematically, and that's the problem. We have to do it systematically. And what is that? We have to make an effort to consciously look for recently learned information. So and we did it right now a couple of times. What did I do? I told you to retrieve the 4 pillars of, ed tech for learning, for teaching, right? And then I gave you some time to retrieve that information. This effort strengthens the neural connections, the connections in the brain. So many times we don't do that because we don't like the idea of being silent in the lesson. So this is very important. This is extremely important. Give your students 30 seconds or maybe less. Maybe, actually 30 seconds is good enough, but you can give them more, 1 minute to retrieve anything. How do you do it? Now let's do it. So try to retrieve anything. Try to think of anything I've been discussing with you so far, a concept, an impression, anything, and then put them in the chat box for me to take a look, okay? Yes, I can see some. Yes, training our memory. Anything you can remember. Yes, I realize you focus a lot on memorization. Definitely, Paula. So I'm talking about a study done by Jana Weinstein, Madan, and Sumeraki. So metacognitive strategies for memorization, but there are other things relating to emotional intelligence, mindsets, self-efficacy, self-determination. So I'm really talking about memorization here. That's a very good observation. Innovation, creativity, taking breaks, learning to learn, brain gets tired easily. Excellent. Let's move on then. Very VLE, Christina. Access, two pillars, strategies. Very good. The tool we can use is anything that works with quizzes. Okay? So if you think about quizzing your students, like Quizlet. So Quizlet is a great tool to quiz your students because then they have to retrieve information. They have a flashcard. They look on the front of the flashcard. They have a question they have to remember and then check the back. But you also have Kahoot, Mentimeter, Socrative. There's so many, Polev and things like that. Anything that quizzes your students, okay? No problems there. And then moving on, yes, Padlet. Padlet works fine too, Simonette. Wonderful. And then I hope you can see my slide. The next one doesn't really require lots of explanation because it's about duo coding. So duo coding is something that we do easily, normally. It is something that I'm doing right now. So you can hear me, you can listen to me, you can see me on video, hopefully, and you can also see my slides. So there's sound and there is image. And then you can use the stimuli, those stimuli, to make better memories in your brain. It's better than just listening to something or just looking at something. So if you have a podcast, you're learning from a podcast, it might not be as effective as learning from a PowerPoint presentation with the presenter using body language and things like that. So what can we use to create this dual coding moment? A video conferencing tool. So whenever you set up a video conference for your students, you are going to create a new meeting, just like we're doing here. You are going to join computer audio and image and video. And you can see Mr. Trunk is always helping me there. And then your students will be able to see you, to see your slides, listen to you, and make stronger memories. So that, that's something that we normally do. Doesn't require a lot of explanation, really. On the other hand, and maybe you can hear my cat meowing. I think he's enjoying the presentation. So on the other hand, there's something that we don't do as much, and this is elaboration. So elaboration, yeah, somebody just mentioned a couple of tools there. Thank you very much. So elaboration has a lot to do with the Socratic method or inquiry-based teaching, right? So I think there's another cat meowing there, right? Wonderful. Yes. So thinking deeper and asking questions about something increase memory consolidation. So I always talk about present perfect because it's a very difficult thing to teach in Brazil, I think, because of, unspecified time and things like that. Yes, no, yeah, it was my cat. Don't worry, he's just asking for food, I guess. Anyway, and when we're teaching present perfect, I think students have a very superficial knowledge of present perfect, like the formula, how you put them together, have plus participle and things like that. For them to really learn, they need to have multiple representations of that in their brain. So they have to ask, what do I use that for? When can I use it? But do I use it only for this or for that? So ask them questions. Can you give me an example? I have done my homework. Excellent. Can you give me an example related to something else? And then they're going to say, I have traveled to Spain 2 years ago. Uh-oh. And then you realize, okay, you don't use 2 years ago, a time marker with present perfect. Because you asked questions, you had them elaborate on things, you can identify possible errors, and you can make different representations of that in their brains. So that's a great tool for memorization. And how do you do that? I think Padlet works really well for that. So when I was working with my dissertation, I made a Padlet, and then I started adding a lot of files about one particular topic. So it could be a video, could be a YouTube video, could be, I don't know, maybe an image, a photo, could be a text, a PDF, it could be anything. So you click on the plus button and then you have a lot of options to upload, right? Or yes, offer a story or a context, that's perfect, right? And we're getting to the end of our metacognitive strategies. And this one is very simple, concrete examples, right? So I suppose I gave you a concrete example, or many, hopefully, of how to use those strategies with your students with present perfect, or, because concrete examples are easy to understand because they're not abstract. Abstract things fill up your working memory system very quickly. They're hard to understand. Your working memory system is kind of like your desk where you work. So if you have too many things on it, it's very hard to work. It's disorganized. You have clutter. So you have to clear things out. You have to dump things so that you can work, right? Because it gets filled pretty quickly. But you also have drawers, right? You have drawers where you have files, old things, and sometimes you have to open the drawers, get those files so you can connect with whatever you have on your desk, your computer, your mobile, a notebook, or whatever. And this is our working memory, right? So we need to integrate things from the drawers with whatever is on the surface, and also keep them tidy. Otherwise, we can get lost very easily, and also not put too many things on it, right? So now I gave you a concrete example of how your working memory works. And I hope you can understand the concept in a much better way, right? For you to make things concrete for your students, I suggest Canva, so they can work with design. It's very, very intuitive, very user friendly. I normally, the post that you can see on Facebook, on Instagram, that I make, I use Canva for them because, I don't have a background in design, but they work very well. And also, this is very static, except for some effects. If you want something a little more lively, you can use Powtoon. So Powtoon helps you make animated videos with soundtrack, and you have props, and you have characters, and you have many, many things. It's wonderful, really. And then finally, for us to wrap up, those are all the strategies. You can read more about them on my blog. I want to wrap up with, again, going back to innovation, because I think true innovation is not about finding a new tool to do something old. It's about using any tool, old or new, to do something entirely new, something groundbreaking. Because I think that we're trying to focus too much on the latest innovation, technological innovation. But why don't we start using the stuff that we already know how to use in a more brain-friendly way so that we can empower our learners and ourselves as teachers as well? And also, if you think about it, so let me move on. This is what this British teacher did in Italy with his kids. So I got this from a newspaper. And this British teacher living in Italy talked to this head teacher, Salvatore Giuliano, who said, "A child of 15 has far more creativity than we have. Every time you give them freedom and tools to create something, they will astonish you." And that is true. It's so true that this guy, Sugata Mitra, a professor at the University of Newcastle, conducted an experiment in the late 90s, the hole in the wall, and then he put computers connected to the internet in a wall in rural India, and then everybody could, all the kids around could, use supervised kids can use the internet to learn anything. That's what he saw, and we can. And I promise I'm actually a little over, so and then you can ask me questions, but I have only 2 more slides. This is what I did with my students. So another concrete example. It was a lesson that got published in the New Ways in Teaching Speaking, 2nd edition. So you can download it, I guess. And it was about teaching my kids about asking for the time, telling time, and things like that. So what did I do? Well, nothing too special. I actually made my kids reflect upon time zones, because normally you just put them in pairs. What time is it? it's whatever. Those are the chunks, right? But then I had them draw a map, a world atlas using the projector. So I projected on the wall. They did that. Now in remote teaching, they can get a piece of paper to do that. They built two clocks with plates, like paper plates. They built the hands of the clocks with cardboard, and then they called six friends of mine to ask what time it was where they were. So they called Rachel in Wyoming, the US. What time is it, Rachel? They called Marion in Washington, D.C. They called Lucia in Cusco, Peru. They called Marcus in Dublin, Ireland. They called Valdeir in Stuttgart, Germany. And they called Afra, my friend, in Iraq. And then they realized that there are different time zones according to where we are. And the incredible piece of technology that I used to make this happen was WhatsApp. You see? But I'm pretty sure that I made it more memorable for my students. So you don't really have to use anything too sophisticated, right? And of course, again, even if you use all the tools that I shared with you, it doesn't mean that necessarily all your students are going to learn or have a very successful learning experience, because every student is unique. But I think that if you use practices based on the science of learning, you are going to give them a better chance to learn more effectively, and you yourself is going to teach more effectively, right? So I said you is, right? Sorry. So you are going to teach more effectively, because as Sir Ken Robinson said once, and then I leave you with this idea. So he mentioned in one of his brilliant talks, as usual, and again, we have to honor the legacy of this man, is that we have to recognize that human flourishing is not a mechanical process, it's an organic process. And you cannot predict the outcome of human development. All you can do, like a farmer, is create the conditions under which they will begin to flourish. And I believe those conditions, they have a lot to do with how the brain learns, how the mind learns. So yes, we have to know more about the science of learning, and we have to know more about metacognitive strategies. And as somebody asked me, not just memorization techniques, but also mindset, self-efficacy, self-determination, emotional intelligence, everything. And then we can truly create innovative students who are going to change things for us, who are going to create new technologies or new ways to do things. So thank you very much, everyone. I still have a couple of minutes for questions, I guess, 5 or so. If you want to contact me, you know where to find me. Please send me an email, follow me on Instagram, and you can follow my blog, because I tend to write about stuff like this on my blog when I have the time. And it was a privilege to be here. And I hope the experience wasn't too bad because of the connection. If it was, I will talk to Clara and Daniela so that I can record this and then send them the video so they can post on their portal. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. So if you have any question, well, I think I'm actually on time, aren't I? Yeah, that's rare. I still have like 10 minutes for questions, isn't it? Okay, so I will stop sharing my screen. So now you can ask me all the questions you want. Thank you very much. Oh wow, I think I had 320 people watching me here, and more people on YouTube, right? Thank you, thank you, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Laura, Dumitru, Daniela. Thank you. Okay, so questions? Or maybe you're just tired and you want to go home now. I mean, you are home, aren't you? Adelina, see you next year in Bucharest. I would love to go to Bucharest again, but I'm not sure I can. It's a little too far. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I think that's it. No questions, right? Maybe there are some questions on YouTube. I'm not sure in the chat box, and let's take a look. Mihaela, great presentation, super stuff, great. Thank you, thank you, thank you a lot. Bye. I hope you're having fun at the conference, everyone. Okay, I can see now. Okay, I can see a lot of people on Facebook, but I think no big questions, right? Very informative. Thank you very much. Word wall. That's okay. Word wall learning apps. Great ideas. My students love Kahoot. Yes, students really love Kahoot. Yeah, certainly Zoom. Yep. Edmodo. Okay. Okay. All right. So that's it. Thank you. I'm leaving now. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again. Enjoy the conference tomorrow. I would like to thank Clara and Daniela especially for having me once again as a speaker at this great conference. And remember, work on your CPD always. Content, people, places, development, and continuous professional development. Bye bye, everyone.